Keep it high, keep it tight. I'm Jamer's Review Guy, back to bring you another 5-minute review. So, my favorite band is Erra. I think that's known at this point, and I have done 2 reviews of their album Drift. And then I did a review of Moments of Clarity, and then I did a review of Augment, and I decided in that video, in Augment, that I was just going to go backwards throughout their discography and review each of their albums, including their EPs. So, chronologically, we're moving further back from Drift, where we first began, and we are doing their first debut full-length album entitled Impulse. So, starting off the review is the fact that a lot of people say that this album can get a bit repetitive, that maybe it blends together a little bit, and that is an argument that can be had. This is likely my probably least favorite release from the band, and it's not necessarily because it's a bad album, because for something to be my favorite band, I don't necessarily feel like they can make a dud album, even their early work. It is more along the lines of, I just feel like compared to their other releases, Augment, Drift, Moments of Clarity, Andromeda, I think that Impulse does what it needs to do well. I think it's a good Erra release. I think it's a way to catapult them into what they were going to become with Augment. And I think that Impulse was the album that, when they got signed to Tragic Hero Records, they really kind of broke out into that progressive metalcore scene. And it was really big at the time. You had a lot of bands coming into the genre, and there had already been some bands that were playing around with it before then. You had bands that were early into it, like Born of Osiris and Veil of Maya, and then later on you had bands like Periphery and Vent Animate, Vilsharta. You had bands like Chimp Spanner, like Cloud Kicker, and it was a good album to break them into that scene. And with that came expectation. And what Augment did is it took them out of the progressive metalcore scene and just dropped them headfirst into the metal scene. When it comes to Sumerian Records, this was one of the best pickups they've ever done, because there's a genre that's kind of called like Sumerian core, which is like the progressive bands that are in Sumerian Records, and like Veil of Maya, Born of Osiris, Periphery. There's a lot of them, and Upon a Burning Body. And it's kind of like, and Between the Buried and Me recently. But Erra is a good inclusion, because I feel like they are one of the leaders in this genre, and they really do well with technicality. And even if you feel like some of these songs maybe blend together, maybe they sound too similar, maybe whatever your reason would be for not liking this album, I feel like the technicality alone can kind of keep you hooked until the end of the album. And it's definitely an album that I return to. I've listened to all of Erra's albums quite a few times, so it kind of gives me a unique perspective to be able to talk about this, especially considering them being my favorite band. And I'm not saying that this album is perfect. This is, like I said, this is likely my least favorite release from the band, but at the same time, like I said, I don't think they can release a dud. So, the instrumentation on this album is obviously very fine-tuned, very perfect. They do a great job of what they mean to do. I think that for Erra, they branch out and they try to take that progressive metalcore type of feel and take it up to a new level. I think that they really do try to do interesting things, and I think it works. They do breakdowns, but most metalcore bands and progressive metalcore bands do rely on breakdowns a lot. But I feel like Erra's breakdowns and Erra's solos are a lot more provoked than some of the other ones. I feel like they use them when they need to, they use them in good ways, and they make them interesting. And I definitely enjoy that about this album, and I enjoy that about Erra in general. And like I said, Augment was the album that really bumped them up to a new level, and Impulse was the building blocks, and everything before that were the building blocks of Impulse. And I feel like this band is only getting better with time. Literally, if you look at my favorite albums of Erra, I might do a rank them all of like my favorite albums by them. But like, considering the fact that chronologically my favorite album goes up with each album, this year's may outdo Drift, because they are releasing an album this year. So could that outdo Drift? We'll see. I don't know. But anyways, guys, I'm going to give this album a 7 out of 10 just because, yes, it can get a little repetitive in terms of the sound. They can maybe blend together. They'll have these crushing riffs and the growls and the screams, and then they'll have the really, really high-pitched vocals in the chorus, and it'll go back and forth. You have a solo, you have a breakdown. Yes, it's a little less inventive than Augment and Drift and Moments of Clarity and even Andromeda, but still, I think that this is a very, very good album. I think that if you are a fan of progressive music, progressive metalcore, if you like Erra, or if you've checked them out because of some of their later material that I have reviewed on this channel, definitely check them out. So obviously the next review that we're going to be doing of Erra is going to be Andromeda, and that should be out hopefully either this week or next week. So I'll talk to you guys later. This has been J Morse Review Guy, as always, signing off, saying farewell.